Ben, it's great to be here with you for the final of the 5 TCM movie confessions. And yours is a big one.
Yeah, it's a pretty big one. And it comes with a twist. At least it came with a twist for me.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about Rebel Without a Cause from 1955. Of course, James Dean, Natalie Wood, Sal Mineo, directed by Nicholas Ray. And as I understand it, you were like, I have seen it, I haven't seen it, maybe I have, maybe I haven't.
Well, I hadn't seen it for forever. So, I mean, I got into my 50s and well into my TCM life without having seen it. But my recollection was that we had a guest on who picked it. And if a guest is coming on to talk about a movie, even if it's my favorite movie in the world, I'm going to rewatch it so it's fresh in my memory. And so I was under the impression until last night at about 11:30 p.m. that I had seen it, but I thought it was odd that I didn't recall much of it, which has led me to believe that people make too big a fuss out of it. So then I see the first scene. There's no spoiler here. It opens as James Dean is hauled into the juvenile delinquency center in this town they've moved to. And I've seen that scene. Natalie Wood and Sal Mineo are there too. But then as soon as Dean gets home, I was like, well, I don't remember this, nor did I remember anything else. So what I watched was the first 7 minutes of this film at some point.
Right.
And nothing else. There's one moment where his father's played by Jim Backus, Thurston Howell from Gilligan's Island, and he's wearing, I want to say an apron, but it's a lady's apron.
Yeah.
And he's over his suit. And I'm like, a person remembers seeing this scene. So it turns out what I thought was a little bit of a betrayal of movie confessions was not, and it's a genuine movie confession. I saw this film for the first time last night.
Okay, so what about a couple of years ago when we all convened on the Warner Brothers lot for that sketch where you're driving the golf cart and it's basically the Chicky Run from this movie?
I don't remember who I asked who I knew would keep my secret. I said, what's this from? And they told me, and then I saw that scene.
That sequence.
But all I saw was that scene. So it almost had no context. But then, sure enough, when that scene shows up in the movie and there's a drag race and Natalie Wood starts it, which is the role that Alicia took on.
Right.
I'm like, oh, yeah, this was this. I had seen that, but you could look that up on YouTube, and it's 1 minute and 10 seconds.
Of
So
course.
I had seen that, but it had no context, and I didn't know what happens at the end of the scene.
Okay, and then after the movie shows, I want to dig in a little bit more about how you feel about this film and the James Dean performance. But beforehand, I want to know, are you a East of Eden and Giant fan? Are you a James Dean fan in the other two?
I have not seen either of those movies either.
They're worth seeing.
Yeah. I've seen everything else he made.
Right,
though.
exactly.
No, so I'm an enormous East of Eden fan, and I think that's, to me, the best performance of the two that I knew. But I have to reconsider everything now. Mostly it's not, I don't know about the performance in this so much as the intensity of the impact. I mean, first of all, I'm not sure that there has ever been a better looking person in a movie, specifically in one movie, than he looks here. You have to get past the fact that he does not appear to be 17 by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah,
but whatever, we'll play along. He looks so good. And so everything he does, every time he moves his eyes and when he laughs, when he has some joy come to him, and there's anger, there's a mix here. I think it's a very good performance. I think there's some over-the-top moments from everybody. They're following Nick Ray's lead, clearly, but it's impressive. But we'll talk more after.
For sure. Yeah. Ben, you've sold it. I think everyone out there, including the 2% of our audience who has never seen this movie before.
No, that's too high.
They're all excited.
yeah, that's too high.
All right, well, we'll talk more about it afterwards. But here it is from 1955, directed by Nicholas Ray, James Dean in Rebel Without a Cause. So Ben, what'd you think about Rebel Without a Cause?
So, I mean, it's crazy the things that start building up in your head when you go so long without having seen a movie, right? And then you start defending why you haven't seen it, even though no one's really questioning you on it,
There's no shame.
And I think that James Dean is overhyped and the movie's overhyped and it's too theatrical. And there were moments that I thought were a little too theatrical from all three of them. But I get it. No question they were following Nick Ray's lead because they also have moments where they underplay scenes, so they're quite capable of it. But I get why people make a big deal out of it. Like it was, and it was suspenseful because for most of the movie, it was very clear once the gun came into play that somebody is going to die, and I assumed it was going to be Dean.
Right.
So it was somehow even more tragic that it was Sal Mineo, which of course then takes on this whole other added meaning because of Sal Minio's life.
Yeah.
But I thought all three performances were terrific. And Dean, that is as movie star performance as I can think of. That is a guy in what I guess was his second movie made, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he made East of Eden with Kazan, but he is much more arresting here in Rebel than in East of Eden, even though I still love East of Eden. But I get why everyone in Hollywood would have thought, whoever we think the #1 star is now, he's about to be supplanted by James Dean.
Sure, and iconic is such an overused word these days. This performance, this character, this personification is truly iconic.
Yeah, totally legitimate to say that. I also have thought, because he died so young and so tragically, those generally go together, that the sentiment that he would have been a big star is overstated by the fact that he was martyred, right, at such a young age. But now I think he would have been as big a star as, at a bare minimum, as Paul Newman, Marlon Brando. He was going to be Steve McQueen. He was going to be the dominant movie star, or one of the 2 or 3 dominant movie stars of the through the 1960s and certainly into the 70s. I bet he would have aged quite well.
Yeah. What about the fact that of the 3 James Dean film performances, this is the one that did not get an Oscar nomination? The other 2 did.
I mean, that's the year and fickleness, and maybe because it was I bet it was a movie about, and first of all, it's fairly mild juvenile delinquency. You half expect them to be like the Sharks and the Jets and start snapping, right?
Yeah.
Those tough guys, I didn't buy how tough they were. But so I think that might have had something to do with it. The other 2 movies are much more intense, grown-up themes. This was, we were still trying to, as a country, figure out how to accurately portray teenage angst. I think here this was way ahead of the game. The suggestion, because there's a suggestion in this movie that these kids who are acting up, I suspect most parents would have thought, put them in their place, ground them. But this movie is really saying, maybe listen to them.
What do you think would have happened if you had watched this movie for the first time, not in your 50s, but in your teens?
Oh, in my teens, I probably wouldn't have appreciated it. And the little moments that I would have thought were overdramatic, where there's an instantaneous swing of emotion, which is a general sign to me that they couldn't write their way into something more subtle. I probably would have just dismissed it.
It wouldn't have spoken to you on the troublemaker front?
I don't think so. I don't. And now I think it's less of a troublemaker movie than a movie about dads, right? And so that obviously speaks to me and how you're supposed to be with your kids and how you have to listen to them. And that does not mean tell them that everything's always going to be okay, or that whatever they're thinking is okay. I mean, but I'll just share that I think it's incredibly important that my daughter is 12 years old and she acts sometimes like she's 16 or 17. I mean, the teenage rebellion part of her has definitely started. And I just think it's really important to give her the reaction. Like, she can react poorly. She can roll her eyes. She can, for a moment, right? She gets the moment. She can't continue it forever. She can't continue the same thing. But she gets, like, if we say something she doesn't like, you got to let her react. You got to hear it. You got to understand it. And you got to get her to do the thing you want her to do. And, you got to remember that as much as I want to be like her best friend, like my most important role is to be her father. And
so, bottom line recommendation from you, Rebel Without a Cause?
No, that's a no-go. Yeah, it's as good as people say. It is not overhyped. And James Dean, had he lived, would be as big a star, big a movie star as we saw come out of that era. No question in my mind.
Well, Ben, it was an absolute pleasure to talk to you about this film. I'm so glad you liked it.
Yeah, and this was our first time, just me and you.
I enjoyed it.
Me too.
Well done. All right, that's it for me and Ben, but stick around because coming up next on TCM, another great film, as always, uncut and commercial-free.
It was all right. I mean, I usually do it a little more. There's a little more flow to it, but that was fine.
Next on TCM, the 2 Mrs. Carrolls, then High Sierra, and later, Jezebel. Hank Fonda's Seeing Red on TCM tonight.